All right, welcome everybody to Fact versus Fiction, the reality of eClosings and Ron in today's unique economic environment. We've got a great webinar planned today, and speaking on behalf of DocMagic and OpenClose, I'd like to say thank you for joining us. At the end of the presentation, we'll have a session for Q&A. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to send them to us. There's a question section on the right GoToWebinar panel. I'm Alan Pollack. I'm the Vice President of Innovation here at OpenClose. I've been in the mortgage industry since 2002. I started out as an originator, and simultaneously, I was the co-founder in a mortgage technology startup. And since that time, I've been fortunate enough to work alongside so many great people and companies in our industry. My passion is how people and technology interact together and how innovation continues to advance for us to work smarter in a more self-service and instant gratification world today. Ron Correo has been with DocMagic for 18 years and with many different roles, but most of the time in the training department. He now focuses on championing eClosings for the mortgage industry as the business development manager. And also with us today is Kathy Olson from OpenClose. She is the director of LOS support services, which includes the tech support and training. Kathy's been with OpenClose for 10 years, and she's been in the mortgage business for over 30. Kathy's focus is on responding to customers' needs so they can focus on their business. We live in a world today of instant gratification and self-service. And while we're already on the path to all things digital, maybe a global pandemic was needed to let us know we haven't been moving fast enough. Here are some most recent stats, a show of the times, let's say, but more importantly, a representation of where we've come as an industry already. 92% of recent mortgage borrowers were found to have done online research before even speaking to a lender. That's 60% more than 5 to 10 years ago. And while it's not surprising, that's where the difference is when looking at today versus tomorrow. Since the COVID-19 pandemic started, and we all know Redfin, they announced some interesting numbers earlier this month. They found that more home buyers want to do video home tours and e-mortgages. In fact, 1 in 3 home buyers want to do video home tours, and 12% want to favor e-mortgages. What's staggering, 12% may not seem like a lot. It was only 1% in the month prior. Since Redfin completed that survey early last month, I'm willing to bet these numbers have increased even more. And if we look at the folks that actually deal with the title aspect of a mortgage closing, 80% of title companies are interested in conducting digital closings or have already closed some type of hybrid electronic or remote online closing, according to a recent Alta survey. As we get into some content here, I want to share some accolades that both DocMagic and OpenClose are very proud of. In the most recent Stratmore survey, both companies were recognized for a number of accomplishments. And among the many things to be proud of, DocMagic having the highest lender loyalty score, and OpenClose was also #1 in overall satisfaction and had the highest lender loyalty score. An interesting fact though, DocMagic has the largest market share for eClosing, and that's why we're here today. At OpenClose, we look at our relationships as partnerships. And what's more valuable to us is really listening to our clients and helping to bring thought leadership to the forefront. I promise you, you will hear more about great topics and opportunities to join us throughout 2020. So we know this looks noisy and busy, but the market today is noisy and busy. The fact of the matter is that COVID-19 continues to change our daily life. Today, we have drive-through notarizations, porch signings, and other unique situations. And with mandated stay-at-home orders and for the safety of everyone involved, the old way of doing business has changed. And as you've likely heard in the news, many states are pushing ahead now on laws that allow for the advancement of remote online notarizations, or simply RON. Currently, 23 state legislatures have passed legislation authorizing RON, and nearly every state legislature has introduced RON legislation. That's a tongue twister, by the way. In at least 8 states, RON is right now temporary. And just a little history, RON was implemented in Virginia in 2011. And since that time, it's rapidly gained widespread acceptance. It did move slowly, but as you can see today, it has become a great accelerator with what's to come. So how does it all work? I want to give you a quick intro about Ron, but I am going to let the actual Ron tell us about Ron in just a couple minutes. Ron is an audio-visual conference where borrowers work within an identity proofing process. They show their valid government ID on the video. The borrowers will then answer a series of knowledge-based authentication questions. You may have heard of that. It's called KBA. Those questions then move into a digital signature that's agreed to and documented. And then the remote online notary witnesses the document by affixing an electronic seal, all while streamlining in the live audiovisual conference. And of course, the video session is recorded and then retained. Let's talk about some of the things that we're hearing out there. It's always great to hear something, right? But what do you make of it? A saying which I've heard in the past, shoot for the moon, and if you miss, you will land in the stars. I'm not sure that will work in selling your goals for eClosing, but smaller, more tangible goals make much more sense. That's really secret code for hybrid eClosing solution. You can start small and expand towards a total eClosing from there. And while you determine your plan, it's important to know what's on that path. For example, allowing borrowers to have access to loan files prior to closing, or knowing if the states you're lending in support remote online notarizations. Many states now do. Even knowing multiple platforms are not needed and the process for a settlement agent is simple, and we know they prefer to use eClosing solutions, so it's a slam dunk. Let's take a quick overview of the benefits as you think about your journey to eClosing. As we get closer with more adoption, the reality is borrowers are really asking to be digital, and we still have more to do. And you just saw there's a lot of noise in the market. So as I've been sharing, it is easier to start to implement eClosing solutions than you may think. More importantly, it's not an all or nothing scenario. More than likely, your number one goal is to retain new leads, increase your pull-throughs, gain new referral business. In that process, customer satisfaction is key. So starting with a hybrid solution is ideal. In fact, we all know very well, it's not always easy to implement and adopt new technology, and it's not always the technology solution that's at fault. But it's time to take those smaller steps and move forward. Having your borrowers engage through the process, scheduling their closings at their own schedules, and digitally signing documents from their dining room table is all very important. And as you look into the future, and their need to lower, your need to lower risk and reduce your costs, eClosing creates that digital efficiency for loan quality and delivery that are very important. There is real-time or immediate ROI that you will see. Let's move now into the deeper dive with Ron on eClosings. And Ron, and if you're just joining us, remember that we have a Q&A session that will be towards the end of the webinar, that we can answer any questions, and those questions can be directed into the questions panel on the right side of your screen. And Ron, I'm going to throw it over to you right now.
Go for it. Let's see here. Alrighty. And now I can show my screen. There we go. I have some slides that I'm going to be bringing up here as well, so bear with me one moment. There we go. It's important to mention that about really more than half of all eClosings today, all transactions, are passing through some form of DocMagic component, at least one component. But when we talk about eClosings, it's important to understand that when you select a service, you try to stay with something that's consistent all the way through the process, where you don't have any disconnected systems that get involved. That would cause confusion, and the unrelated portions would cause distraction. Instead, what DocMagic offers is a full end-to-end solution, beginning with probably the most extensive document library in the industry. DocMagic has been at the e-sign forefront for many, many years. I mean, I've been with DocMagic for 18 years, and probably about a good chunk of that, we started out our e-sign technology for the initial disclosures, and then kind of grew in and moved into the closing side. Along with that e-sign technology, we've really been the pioneers and on the forefront of creating that Category 1 Smart eNote. This is no small feat, and in fact, when you partner with a doc provider, they need to be able and capable of creating that Category 1 Smart eNote. We're going to talk more about that as we move through the technology and I show you some of the things that are involved with our eClose. Now, when it comes to the electronic notarization, DocMagic has partnered with eNotary technology. And when I say partnered, it's really a melding of two different platforms. We've embedded our closing room wizard inside the electronic notarization platforms that we partner with. So it's still a DocMagic eClosing all the way through to the end. And of course, we build efficiency in the workflow. We have configurations that allow for immediate MERS electronic registry of that note. So that means that we're going to build efficiency in your workflow. Someone told me the other day, hey, if I don't have to sign these over every time I send them over to MERS, that's going to save me a lot of time and effort. So that's exactly what we do. And of course, when it comes to shorter long-term storage, DocMagic certified eVault, which is used by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and many of the major investors out there, is a great place to store those documents. Once again, staying in one continuous system. And then when you're ready and you're going to send these out on the secondary market, we have our smart registry system that helps with that. So the investor e-delivery portion, we've whittled down that process all the way down from 13, 14 days in the paper world, all the way down to 3 or 4 days, because now we're sending data and not documents that have to be scanned, OCR'd, reviewed, and then finally accepted. So we're finding a lot of efficiency in those workflows. So you're probably asking, okay, is this an all-in proposition? Well, let's talk about the different types of eClosing that DocMagic can perform today. Of course, there's the holy grail, that complete total eClose, where we have an eNote and eNotarizations. But I want to back up way to the beginning to a hybrid number one. In a hybrid number one, during the transaction, the settlement agent papers out the notary documents. Those are all wet signed and then uploaded to the signing ceremony. We can also perform a hybrid 2, where we give you a Category 1 Smart eNote that will help build efficiency. It goes into the eVault, and then it can be registered with MERS automatically, and then you can transfer it out onto the secondary market with our smart registry system. And then we have paper notary documents. So all those notarized documents are papered out, signed, stamped with the rubber stamp, and uploaded. And then there's a hybrid 3 with a paper note with eNotarization. So those eNotarization portions go to either a RON transaction, which is Remote Online Notary. I've never, it's kind of funny, I've never heard my name mentioned so many times during a webinar as today, but a RON transaction for Remote Online Notary, or IPEN, In-Person Electronic Notary. And DocMagic has the capability to do both of those flavors of notarization should you require it. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, that complete, total eClose experience. Now, folks tell me, do I have to go all E? No. I would recommend setting up for a complete, total eClose. And in the meantime, once you're up and running with DocMagic, within 24 to 48 hours, we can have you running hybrid eClosings. So that would get you started out into the eClose process. And you know, as has been mentioned, never more has it been important during this time, during this crisis, to become completely E. And we can talk a little bit more about the steps that you would need to take for that. So let's take a look at the current status of eNotarization and RON transactions inside the United States. And you can see visually here, just pick up your state. We can see whether both IPEN or RON transactions are available and authorized in your state, where RON laws are set to take effect later in 2020 or beyond. and where just the IPEN transactions are currently available. Now, as mentioned earlier, there are emergency actions that have taken place, and you'll see those laid out as well on the overlay here of the United States. We know that Indiana's RON law should take effect July 1, so you'll see more and more states adopting that RON method of electronic closings. And this is just as of April 16th. This is an evergreen map, and I'm sure we're having more and more effect with RON throughout the United States. And in fact, I know California has had some laws that have been sitting waiting for action. So we're eager to hear about where California will go toward the future. So the paper note is pretty much similar to a check, right? If you lose the original, hey, you can't cash that eNote. So I just want to be clear about the differences between a paper closing and an eNote. The eNote, however, is different. In the paper world, we have the concept of original and copy. And it really is who has the original of that note. In the e-world, we're more talking about authoritative copy and who has retention of that authoritative copy. So that concept of original and copy go away. Instead, it's who has the authoritative copy of that note. In the eVault, we clearly display this so that you can see at a glance whether or not you retain authoritative copy. And when you transfer it out, you'll see that you no longer have that. So you'll see that that is moved forward. The safekeeping of the paper notes is among probably the highest risk in the loan origination process. Physical vaults must be fortified with firewalls and so on. DocMagic takes care of all of that with our eVault. And you don't have to worry about that. So it greatly reduces the maintenance that you have to provide, the fragility and the resources, and it really just gets rid of all the things that can go wrong with losing those eNotes. DocMagic can store those in our vault system. Now, looking at that visual, and I really like this visual because it shows you a note, but if you unpeel that layer of that note, what you're really looking at is XML data, and that's exactly what our eNotes are. They're all XML data. So we can ensure that document integrity. Once the document is signed, we wrap the whole set in a tamper-evident seal. So it's tamper-proof. And then, of course, with the enhanced reporting capabilities, you can see within our smart registry system where those notes have gone and where they're at. So it expedites the delivery of those notes on the secondary market. I've mentioned our smart registry system, but let's talk a little bit more about our eVault. The automated reporting capabilities in there to send the documents to MERS rather quickly. We can also build efficiency in there and make sure that it's registered with MERS in a timely fashion. That goes without saying. We have that capability within our eVault. We can also build or configure that event to happen as soon as the documents are completely signed. We can automatically register with MERS. So no longer do you have to go into any system and click a button to send those to MERS. We can do those automatically. We're going to build speed and efficiency throughout this event. And of course, remember, all of this starts with the integration that you are enjoying right now today with OpenClose and DocMagic. And I'm going to show you during a demonstration in just a moment exactly how these get delivered for e-delivery and what spawns the event. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. Until then, let's give you a high-level overview of a complete electronic closing. It all starts, as I mentioned, with OpenClose in your package in there. And then you'll move that data to DocMagic. From DocMagic, you create the event. Everything goes into the DocMagic eSign console, so the lender is going to have a visual on this event all the way through the process, including notification emails that will be received for when the borrower consents, when they review, and when they complete the signing. Then a final closing notification will be sent once all the documents have been signed and notarized, with links to the documents. On the day of the closing, the notary agent kicks in and they go into the eClosing. Notary verifies the identity of the borrower. The borrower will e-sign the documents, and then the notary will notarize those, and we will automatically apply an electronic notary stamp. The configuration between the notary and DocMagic allows for those electronic stamps to be applied, and a part of our closing room wizard is taking those stamps and applying them to the documents. So we've pre-tagged all these documents for electronic signature. There's no heavy lifting for you. You don't need to tell us where these documents need to be signed, because DocMagic knows. DocMagic knows our documents, and we put the signature tags wherever they should belong. Once the documents have been signed completely, the notary completes the electronic journal, everything is deposited into our electronic vault. And as I mentioned, we do have the ability to automatically register these loans with MERS. So nothing more for you to do there until you want to send these off onto the secondary market. Remember, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac already using DocMagic's eVault and accepting eNotes from there. And then a lot of the major lenders on the secondary side are also using DocMagic's eVault. So let's take a look at the technology. Now I'm going to minimize my screen here for a moment and bring up DocMagic Online. At that
Thanks,
moment,
Ron.
when you go to, oh, go ahead.
Hey, Ron, thanks. While you switch over to the other screen, for anyone that is just joining us, remember you've just joined Fact versus Fiction, the reality of eClosings in Ron in today's unique environment. And we're just headed over to the live demo version of our presentation. And if you have any questions, there is a questions panel on the right side of your GoToWebinar screen. Please feel free to send them to us. Back to you, Ron.
All righty, thank you. So I'm going to pick up at the moment that the file has been moved to DocMagic. Once you're here inside the file in DocMagic Online, just a couple of things to point out. You'll see that I have a loan number and a MERS number. That's for the automatic registration of the loan with MERS. I've run my audit. Now I'm going to process. Now on the processing screen, we do see that I have some boxes here for electronic delivery. So a hybrid one with just 2 clicks gives you the paper note, paper notary, and then all the other documents can be electronically signed. That's a hybrid one. A hybrid 2 is where I have, excuse that, a category 1 smart eNote. That's a hybrid 2. And then a hybrid 3 request is an eNotary with a paper note. And then, of course, the total eClose package being all these 4 boxes checked. And when I click process, that spawns the event, and it also spawns the invitation emails to the borrower and to the closing agent. Of course, the lender always has eyes on this transaction right here inside our dashboard at DocMagic.com in the eConsole. So let's take a look at that very quickly. We'll just unpack this very quickly. Here's my e-sign transaction for total eClose. Remember, the eConsole is the repository for everything E. So initial disclosures, redisclosures, the appraisal review package, the closing disclosure 3 days before consummation of the loan. If you're sending these packages on eSign, this is where you will find them, along with the closing docs. So let's take a deeper dive. And here I see my participants with a placeholder for the notary. We see something called preview mode, and we're going to explore that in just a moment. But just so that everyone's aware, preview mode allows the borrower the ability to review the documents in advance of the closing without the ability to sign the documents. This is a magic moment when the borrower connects with the lender and asks all kinds of questions so that when they get to the closing table, all they do is sign documents. Now, we do have a configuration that turns preview mode off at midnight Hawaii time. And when it shuts off, there's another invitation email that goes out to the borrower, this time to sign all the ancillary documents. That way, when they get to the closing table, all they sign is the notary documents. In the case of a hybrid, they would be paper signing those. In the case of a total eClose, all they do is just the notarized documents. We call that a streamlined closing, but we also call it a better borrower experience because we're seeing pickups in time on that closing from 2 hours all the way down to 10, 15 minutes at the most. And the settlement agents like the efficiency of that because they can perform more closings in a day as well. The beauty of that, too, in a total eClose scenario, is that there's no paper shuffled around. In a hybrid one, upon completion, the settlement agent has to deliver back the original copy of the note. So that's how a hybrid one is resolved. Let's take a look at the Documents tab. And, well, before I go there, let's talk about participants, because we also give you the ability to add participants or change participants. Right here, to add a participant, I would click Add the information, give an access code. We also have a configuration that would automatically default the access code to the zip code for the subject property. But I can solidify a role for settlement agent, seller, witness, or other. When I add those, I can move over and then click Send Email. To change a participant or edit, this would be to change Andy to Sandy settlement. We would just change Andy to Sandy, change the email address, click Save, and then I would be able to click Send Email again to send a fresh invitation to the newly adjusted settlement agent. Now we can go into the Documents tab and take a look at all the docs in this package. We give both the lender and the settlement agent the ability to add documents and then mark those documents up for electronic tags. These would be post-fill marks, allowing the signer to check boxes, make radial button selections, add signatures, dates, and so on. Remember, when you create the document package with DocMagic, the ones that are generated through DocGen are already pre-tagged electronically. This would be for any documents outside of that creation or DocGen event. So for the settlement agent, it would be their settlement closing documents. All right, so that's kind of what the lender sees. The next character we're going to see in this scenario is the borrower. I want to go through that very quickly. You know, every borrower on the file receives an invitation email. These invitations go specifically to that borrower. We understand that folks share mailboxes. That's why we send out separate invitations to each one. Now, when they click on that link, they go to a dual-purpose page. We're going to ask for the last 4 digits of their social so they can prove they're the correct person to review the documents, and this 4-digit code. And all we're looking for to generate this code is browsers: Safari, Firefox, Chrome, Internet Explorer, or Edge. Any one of those, they're going to be successful here in reviewing the documents. Now, I do see the ability to consent to receive the documents electronically. This covers everyone for the Federal eSign Act or UETA, the Uniform Electronic Transactions Act, for states where UITA takes precedence. If they consented earlier on in the process or the life cycle of the loan, they would not have to consent there. And we completely bypass the ability to select our signature because we're in preview mode. So here we are in preview mode. The yellow tags that we see on the thumbnails are for electronic signatures. The gray tags are for notarized signatures or notary signatures. And then these light blue or turquoise are for something we call post-fill. And I'm going to make this a little bigger on the screen so you can see this and scroll down to my signature. In this case, the post-fill mark is required, and that's that checkbox there. If the borrower tries to sign this document without checking the box, a modal appears just letting them know that they must complete the post-fill before they can sign their document. Up at the top, we have badges. This first badge just signifies or lets the signer know how many signatures and initials should be applied to the documents. The next one next to that are for post-fill. And we have required post-fill and possible post-fill. And on my file, I only have one. So if I click here, it's going to take me to the first document so that I don't miss any signatures. And I can click that and just go to the next page that requires an electronic signature. So that's post-fill. If I tried to go in and sign this document, and I'm trying to do that now, I cannot sign this doc. I can also move through the doc set by clicking continue to next step or by using the thumbnails to the left. So we make it very easy for the borrower. It's very intuitive. There's also a tour that plays to show them and highlight all the features inside our eClosing. And that's the borrower's experience. Now we're going to look at the other folks that are invited to this process, and that's the settlement agent, because they have some things to do too. These emails to the settlement agents will take them to the closing agent portal, specifically for the subject property related below. Settlement agents do not need a DocMagic account. DocMagic does not charge the settlement agent for participating in these transactions. And really, all they need are browsers, just like the borrower. They don't need any heavy installations or things like that. They don't need to keep track of multiple files. They're working on each file separately through that invitation. So once again, we'll log in here real quick. And now I see something similar to what the lender saw with differences, and we're going to unpack some of these differences here. We can see an action log that's really a play-by-play account of who's doing what, when, and where. You'll see the IP address is captured. We capture IP address to mitigate repudiation of the electronic signature for everything that happens throughout this event. We see the participants here without the notary placeholder. Instead, the notary placeholder is placed on the borrower because that's whose documents they'll be notarizing. We see preview mode is on. We'll get to that in just a moment. And then we'll go to the documents. So from here, this is where they can upload documents. They would find a document, place it down here, and then they would be able to electronically or tag those for electronic signatures. It's a very simple process. Let me just run through that very quickly. I'm going to grab a document here. We'll grab one from my desktop. I happen to have a very nice sample. We'll click open and submit. So currently I have 17 documents. In just a moment, I'll have an 18th as that's loaded in. And now I have my 18th document, 2 pages long, 0 marks, 0 signers, and it's marked complete because there are no electronic tags just yet. If I uploaded it in error, I can always delete it. Let's click on this button, and now I see all the documents in the file, and that's by design just to review. But if I go all the way down to the end of the documents, I'll see the document that I just uploaded here. And this is where I can begin to add post fill. So I'll click post fill. We'll add a text box for Andy Agent. It is required. That means that Andy must sign it before allowing or fulfill that post fill before being allowed to sign the documents. I'll place that right where I want Andy Agent to begin signing, or actually, you know what? This is a notary document. I'm going to delete that. We're going to add post fill for the notary. Now I can move this slider bar over if I need more real estate for the notary to type in there. Let's add a date input also for the notary. And I'll take that tag and place it where I want it to go. Now on the last page, we'll add the notary seal. This is a notarized document. And a signature for the notary. Now, of course, we don't want you to have to electronically tag these each time you load the same document over and over again. So we do give you the ability to create a template. Once you create that template and you upload the same document the next time, the electronic tags will automatically be added once you invoke that template. The names of the signers will change based upon the transactional data for the file you're working on at that moment. So I'll click Finish now. And now my document says that I have 4 marks and 1 signer. So it's ready for the closing. Next, the notary is going to assign the notary provider. Remember, we offer IPEN transactions or remote online notary depending on the provider that's selected. So when I select Notary Cam in this place, we see that it defaults to Remote Online Notary. I have the participants here, and I can adjust the closing date. When I click Upload, that update, that payload goes over to Notary Cam, and they assign a Remote Online Notary to this transaction. As we get closer to the closing, the settlement agent comes back in, and they'll click Ready to Close. Before that, they must check some information here, make sure that they have their documents uploaded, they're ready for eClosing, and all eClosing participants have been contacted and ready. So now we can solidify that closing date, and a checkbox for Disable Preview Mode on closing date will automatically turn it off at midnight the day of closing. Now, because my sample file has a closing date in the past, it automatically turns preview mode off. The documents are live for signing now. Now, in the morning of the closing, the borrower could go in, electronically sign all the documents that we saw on their screen. That way, when they get to the notarization part, all they sign are the notary documents. So the next thing I want to do is take you on a little video clip, and hopefully, I know this is a little small, so I apologize, but I will try and narrate through this recording so that you can see exactly what happens during a RON transaction with Notary Cam. So there's some introductions that happen. In a moment, the notary is going to ask the borrower's in the middle, he's going to ask the borrower to place his driver's license or identification documents up to the webcam. These transactions can take place on either a laptop or a touchscreen device that has a camera. We recommend something better than or bigger than a phone, because the viewing experience is better for the documents. That doesn't mean that we can't run our eClosing on all devices. We can run it across all devices and all platforms. We've built our eClose platform off of responsive design, so it looks great on a tablet, a smartphone, but we prefer a tablet. So now we've taken the information for the document, and the borrower is being asked to verify their identity. After I verify my identity, they'll be asking 5 knowledge-based authentication questions. And there's a service that Notary Cam invokes to bring those questions in line. Those 5 questions surround places you've lived, places you've worked at, people you've known, cars you've owned, counties you've lived in, schools you've attended, any one of those, and they're all really public knowledge questions that only the borrower would really know. So, in just a moment, the borrower is going to click send, and then we'll see those knowledge-based questions come through. So here we go. Knowledge-based authentication is being answered. Once the borrower successfully answers those questions, the notary is going to check the notary journal just to see that the borrower did in fact complete the questions successfully. So we'll see that in just a moment. And we have success, so the notary is checking the journal. 5 out of 5 questions answered. And now the notary is going to turn over control of the keyboard and mouse to the borrower. And we're going to start the DocMagic closing room wizard here, and the borrower will be able to sign their documents. So one of the things that the notary is asking is, hey, did you have ample time to review your documents with your lender? In this case, the borrower answers in the affirmative, yes. And so now the notary knows that it's just a matter of signing documents. So we'll see the 4-digit code that was entered. There's the e-signed disclosure and consent. In just a moment, the borrower is going to select a representation of their signature. They can also change the font, the look and feel of their signature. And there's the note. It looks like any other note except that it says for electronic closing. However, I can assure you that this Category 1 Smart eNote is all XML data. So now the borrower is going to start signing. And they're using the badge at the top just to take them to the next document in line that requires an electronic signature. Every time the borrower clicks and applies their signature, DocMagic automatically date and timestamps that action and date and timestamps the signature. Now, when it comes to the 1003, DocMagic can build extra efficiency in that part of the workflow. We can apply something called soft font to the 1003 that will automatically apply the signature for the loan officer so that you don't have to track down that loan officer for electronic signatures. The processor doesn't have to go and sign in on their behalf to sign those. It just automatically happens. They have that soft font applied. So now here the borrower is completed. The notary is going to take over and begin the notarial process. So they take back control. They have a 4-digit code. And here are their documents to notarize. Every time they apply the notary signature, DocMagic applies that notary stamp. So we worked in conjunction with the notary services to receive those electronic stamps. They're in our database and we apply them automatically. And now this transaction is complete. It's been wrapped in a tamper-evident seal. Notification emails have gone out to the lender and to the borrower with links to access the documents that were completed here. These documents have also been placed into the DocMagic eVault for long-term storage. And if the lender has opted for DocMagic to build efficiency in that workflow, we've automatically registered that loan with MERS. And this transaction is complete. So let's go back to here.
Hey, Ron, while you're making the switch over, for anyone that has joined us in the middle of the presentation, first, thank you for joining us. We're ending a live presentation of the eClose and Ron process, but we'll be moving in a moment to questions and answers. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them on the right side of the screen. There's a questions tab, and if you've sent over a question, we will do our best to get to them. Thanks again for joining.
So you see here, these are just a handful of the many benefits of using an eClosing and a RON transaction for the notary. We've built all the efficiency, the ease of use. We've built what we think is a very intuitive method of closing these documents. And by saving you all the time and efficiencies that we've built in, we're going to reduce your costs as well. So a lot of folks ask, what do I need to get started? Well, one of the things that you're going to need is make sure that you're a member of MERS. That's going to be top of mind, and make sure that you have that relationship set up, but also make sure that you've set up for the registering the eNotes with them. That's a little bit of a different certification. So you contact MERS if this is something that's on your radar. Also note that, you don't have to go all in to start out. I would say if your ultimate goal is to go total eClose, then let's start getting you set up for that process. Remember that as soon as you're set up with DocMagic, and if you're a DocMagic customer today, we can have you up and running with a hybrid 1 eClose solution within 24 to 48 hours. So we do have that capability. And then once you move forward through the process, you'll be able to process any one of the other hybrid solutions and a total eClose. But key and paramount to this is to make sure that you have that MERS certification. Make sure that your investors or warehouse lenders are accepting the eNotes. And if you need help with conversations, we can help you with that. We have experience in working with investors and getting them to be a part of these transactions. And really, for the settlement agents, it's a very simple process. A quick 30-minute call with a settlement agent, and we can have them up and running very, very quickly through these scenarios. Remember, we don't charge the settlement agent anything, though those trainings are free as well. So it's been a pleasure spending time with you. And now I'd like to introduce Kathy Olson back from OpenClosing to facilitate our question and answer section.
Thanks, Ron. That was a lot of great information, and we have a lot of great questions as well. So let's get started. We'll see if we can answer as many questions as possible with the remaining time that we have. We have about 9 minutes. I think the number one question was, do I get a copy of this presentation, and are you recording the webinar? Yes to both. If you register for the webinar, we will send you a copy of the presentation as well as a link to the recorded webinar. So that was the easiest question. Back to the content. So one of the questions is, do the GSEs, Fannie Freddie, accept electronic signatures, e-signatures on closing documents?
That's a great question. Absolutely they do. And remember, they're also using our eVault to accept those electronic closings with. So we're very proud of the fact that both Fannie and Freddie are accepting DocMagic's eNotes and eTransactions.
Great. Are there any warehouse lenders that you know of that will fund eNotes today?
There are quite a few in the industry that are funding those eNotes. We can have separate conversations with you to talk about who they are. In many cases, you're probably using them now. For those that are not, we'd like to have a conversation with them and get them on board too, because they will need to have an eVault or access to an eVault to be able to pull these transactions from. So yeah, that's a conversation that we'd like. But today, yes, we do have quite a few warehouse lenders that are funding eNotes.
Okay, great. Can some closing documents be signed prior to the closing date in an eClosing?
Wow, that's a fantastic question. You know, we can configure preview mode however you like. Folks really like the ability for us to close down preview mode at midnight Hawaii time, giving the borrower ample time to sign all their documents before the closing with the notary. But some folks who are going to portfolio the loans don't mind the difference in dates, and if that resonates with you, then we can just leave preview mode off. Preview mode can also be turned off by either the lender or the settlement agent at any time before the closing. So we have all that flexibility. We give you all that flexibility.
Okay, good. This is a question about delivering documents to the investor. Do I need to deliver the e-signed documents directly from DocMagic to the investor, and how does that work?
Right. So that's a fantastic question. Our smart registry system allows for transfer of control and location, and the ability to send the documents over to the investor. The investors having a part of that eVault, or access to the eVault, can then accept those through there. So, you know, we're seeing pickups in time now because we're not sending documents over that have to be scanned and have to have, you know, somebody put eyes on it and validate the data on the documents. Instead, this is all data. So we're seeing pickups in time from 13, 14 days all the way down to 3 or 4 days on the acceptance step. So yeah, great question.
Okay. This question is a little bit more about the technology on the DocMagic side. I think I heard you talking about just being able to use a browser. The question was, does this require any additional software installation and or special user permissions in order to have a RON transaction?
So if you're a DocMagic customer, we need to do some configurations on your account. We'll also have you run some sample sets, but really want to say that you'll have to make sure that you have that ability. We give you all the support. We'll onboard you through that process and make sure that you're going to be successful as you go through and test these out in the beginning. But we can configure your account for these today. It doesn't take very long.
Great. So if I have a settlement agent that wants to get involved in eClosing, how do they get started, and is there a cost to them to participate?
Okay, great question. I kind of mentioned that we don't charge the settlement agents anything, so it's free to the settlement agent. Now, how do they get involved? They get involved when you add them to your OpenClose software when you begin the transaction. Remember, once you do that, when you go into DocMagic and we press the process button, it spawned the invitation email to the settlement agent to invite them to that process. So that's really how they get involved. But back to really getting the settlement agent up to speed, we're going to need to train them. And remember, it takes about 30 minutes. And usually what I do is I get a lender to hook us up with their main settlement agent, their main closing company that they use. We'll do a 30-minute call with them. We'll record it, and then that recording can be used for all the other settlement agents as they come on board.
Okay,
so
great.
it's very easy. Mm-hmm.
So we only have about 4 minutes left, so I'm going to see if I can squeeze in a few more questions. When the closing event is complete, who gets the notification? Who knows that everything is signed and done?
Sure. So remember, it's the processor who processed the file, and in DocMagic Online, on that process window, Let me see if I can bring this up very quickly. I'm going to try and bring this up because there's a piece that can be used, and I think you can see my screen here.
Yes.
When I start clicking here, I have event notification. I can add the loan officer. I can add another processor. I can add a closer. I can add all those emails there. So whoever logged in will receive those notification emails by default. And then we can add extra folks to receive those notification emails. Great question.
Okay, great. I'm just going to ask one more because it's kind of the big one. What is the difference between eNotarization and RON or IPEN and RON?
Okay.
What are the key differences? Yeah.
Certainly. So remember, IPEN, in-person electronic notary, that both the notary and the borrower are in the same location. They're in the same room performing the electronic notarization. They're using a touchscreen device for this, perhaps a Surface tablet, something with Windows 10, or a Topaz signature pad to capture those signatures. In the RON transaction, it's different. The notary is in one location, and the borrower can be at home in the comfort of their bunny slippers, electronically signing and notarizing the documents together via video chat, kind of like what we're doing today with GoToMeeting, except that we don't have our webcams on.
Great.
So that really is the difference.
Okay, we only have about 1 minute left. I'm going to turn it back over to Alan if you want to flip back to that slide with our contact info.
Oh, yeah, let me get that
Alan
back. Here we go.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Ron. There is a famous quote from Albert Einstein I always liked, and I probably need to listen to what it means more myself. It goes like this: plans are nothing, planning is everything. That's the truth. As you look back at what we've covered here today, and speaking for DocMagic and OpenClose, we hope that our thought leadership was helpful and you're more prepared for your eClosing strategy and planning. One near-term benefit I wanted to quickly mention that we talked about is customer satisfaction and the experience they receive and how important that is for referrals, but also for your referral partners, such as your relationships with your realtors. With so much purchase business at the forefront of our business today and the housing market getting started up now for this year, slowly, however, knowing you're helping their home buyers be part of the process and more efficient will help them have trust and strengthen their relationship with you. As a personal thought, with the new direction of where we are as an industry and where we're going to be investing as an industry post-COVID-19, I'm excited to see all the new technology solutions that are coming our way as we adopt eClosing, eNotes, and leverage all the digital efficiencies that come with it. And as Ron shared today, DocMagic is a single platform that can support all of your needs from initial steps in a hybrid solution all the way to your full eClosing solution, and you can even leverage their smart registry. If you're already a DocMagic customer, you can easily move to the different options pretty frictionless. For more information, you can reach out to Ron and DocMagic at the contact info on the top right of your screen right there. And for OpenClose, we'd love to hear from you. As a multi-channel LOS supporting both independent mortgage bankers and financial institutions, our customers get to experience great thought leadership and partners like DocMagic. We also believe in partnership with our clients, and as we mentioned earlier in the presentation, the Stratmore survey agrees. To learn more about OpenClose, you can reach out to Vince Fury. You can see his wonderful picture and Vince's contact information on the bottom right side of your screen. Thanks again for joining us today. We're going to be sending out a thank you email for the presentation, as well as an online recorded session link. Don't forget any questions that you may have posted in the questions tab. If we did not get to them, we still will respond to you independently. Have a great rest of the week, everyone. Thank you again.